for you, Axe, and you're asking yourself, what should I be doing while I'm playing a Zerg? Okay, and this is kind of what these are some things that you need to know. Zerg is a scouting heavy race. Okay, everything you do is really important on what you see and what you do as you scout. Okay, you're the only time that scouting heavy isn't as important is if you're trying to do like some sort of timing or pressure, where you'll see a scout as your units are getting there. Um, when you play Zerg, the Zerg is a race of hard counters. Soft counters usually means that you just lose the game. Uh, that's the unfortunate part about playing Zerg. Mm, In terms of the Zerg mechanics, the hardest part about learning Zerg in the first place is the creep, the injects, and the larva management. Particularly, there's some tricks with injecting, and then knowing when you have larva, when you don't. Spending your larva. If you don't have larva, you can't build units. So getting your queens really early is actually really important in terms of the game. And Zerg late game is different from the other late games of the other races because you have larva. You can rapidly change the type of army that you have. So they call it tech switching, where you might say, well, one round I have lots of corruptors, and then the next round I'm going to hit with lots of hydralisks, and the next round I'm going to hit with sort of swarm host roach off to one side, and then I'm going to come in with mutalisks. So you end up with this sort of switching techs a lot and switching a lot of the places where you attack to sort of make it really hard for the other person to guess exactly what you're going to do. The Zerg hotkeys, the most common ones, are sort of the ones that I think if you watch streams, like Sacsry uses, SACSRY, he only uses 4 hotkeys for his whole setup. A lot of Zergs use 1 for their army, they use 2 for a queen early on, or for queen spreading creep, and then after they get the higher tech units, usually they switch 2 over to Aaron infestors. They tend to use 3 for their queens to do the injects and 4 for their hatcheries. Okay. The basic tech trees, unlike the other 2 races where there sort of are 3 tech trees, Zerg only actually have sort of 2. And it's based off of the upgrades that you get for the ground units. It's either a range tech tree or a melee tech tree. These are sort of the things that you see off 2 bases, 3 bases, and 4 bases for each tech tree. A 2 base generally it's designed around doing some sort of roach timing with upgrades, or getting like some sort of rapid positional advantage, like roaches, queens, and knights. You'll see that a lot against mutalisks or against Protoss that are trying to expand hard. You also see sometimes players go 2 base swarm host. I have 2 or 3 different variants of that. That I can send you if you're interested in those. 3 base ones, there's a 12-minute +1 roach max that's pretty intense. It's pretty hard to stop with the other races. Roach drops are really effective to counter sort of the force fields and the mech play that you see out of Terrans. Roach Hydra Viper is the standard 3 base composition for a ranged tech tree. Most people get that around 14 minutes, sort of a maxed Roach Hydra Viper composition. Off of 4 bases, you start to mix in some of these really gas-heavy units like the Vipers, the Ultralisks, the Infestors. Some you can sort of make transitions with Infestors at 3 base, but it's kind of hard to do a lot of the times. You have to choose either one or the other, Infestors or Vipers early on. In terms of the melee compositions, it's all designed around Zerglings, Banelings, Mutalisks, getting Infestors, Ultralisks, Vipers, and Broodlords. Those are sort of the simple sets that you get, and it tends to be a progression with the melee styles, where you almost are constantly trying to take advantage of the AoE with the Banelings. I don't know. In terms of the races, this is in general sort of the meta that you see. Zerg vs. Terran, it's all about having map vision and macro. The big question that most Zergs ask is whether you have to build roaches or not in the matchup. And some design their builds around building roaches, some don't build roaches at all. If you have Hellions and Hellbats and Marauders, Usually roaches are bad if they have hellbats, marines, and medevacs. Usually roaches tend to be pretty good against that. Um, the timing on the lair is usually like 7:20 if they go for sort of a faster lair, or 8:40 off of 4 bases is sort of a later lair, and usually it sort of is a macro slugfest, Zerg versus Terran, unless they're sort of doing like something different, like a weird 1 base or 2 base play without the third CC. The sorry, I hit the wrong key. The other two matchups, Zerg versus Protoss, it's all about checking their gases and figuring out which tech they're going. And if you don't see 4 gases by 7 minutes, it's no longer a game about tech. It's about trying to guess the right attack timing that it's coming. Usually you skip a layer if you only see one gas. If you see like 2 gas and it's kind of later, then you just sort of delay the layer. That's the typical sort of counter, is choosing your layer around their gas timings. The mothership core is really, it's like if you lose track of it, then they can abuse you. They can abuse and win games constantly with the mothership core all day. So that it's their big racial advantage against the Zerg is having that unit, and you almost always want to. Kill the mothership core if you see it out in the map. It's Zerg versus Zerg. It's all about the lair timings and gases, and almost always, what players try and do is they try and pick. Either they try and take advantage of you being weak on an attack early and expanding early, or by getting, or your build's designed sort of to keep them from getting a third until way later. So those tend to be sort of the setups. And we have a question coming in about where to put the overlords, and unfortunately, on both my games, I explained that on 2 different matchups, but we'll go over it again. These were the things that you should actually learn, but I'll go over it here in this. So we'll just pull up the replays because I don't feel like spending forever on this. So I'll do that while I'm loading it while I'm talking. Okay. So in terms of doing creep tumors and drones, there's efficient ways to sort of send your drones out and to spread out your creep tumors. That's an important thing, and your overlord spread's a really important part of the game. There's 3 different types of injects that you can learn: the backspace, camera hotkey, or the queen hotkey injects. Normally, if you're going for a roach hydra sort of timing, it's 2-to-1 is the ratio on the roaches and hydras. Normally, you want to spread out your roaches so they're all attacking at once. That's what the concaves is. The magic box is a technique with your mutalisks to sort of spread them out. And I'll probably spend more time going over this another day because I've been doing this for a few hours now. A lot of the Zerg vs Zerg ends up being a lot of burrow roach play, and I'll go over that another day too. There's corruptor viper tricks and muta viper tricks, sort of how to manage the vipers and gain advantages with them. And there's tricks with the swarm hosts on where you want to position